this.
Everybody, this is Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. And if you want to get your money's worth, stay right here because you're listening to Knockouts and 3 Counts. And remember, everybody's got a price. $1 Million Man.
This is Don West here, and I'm telling you, Knockouts and 3 Counts is the podcast, baby. Make sure that's the one you check out, because, buddy, like me, they're the real deal, baby.
This is Jake the Snake Roberts. Just letting you know, you need to listen to Knockouts and 3 Counts, or you see that damn snake again.
This is the Ring of Honor World Television Champion, a.k.a. Shane T, boy, the baddest champion you ever seen, boy. And you're listening to Knockouts and 3 Counts.
What up, everybody? This is Kyle, and you are back watching, listening, consuming, whatever the hell you're doing. You're watching Knockouts and 3 Counts. And hey, if you're new here, we appreciate you. If you've been here for a minute, we appreciate you even more. But we didn't announce it, but we are now joined by a guy who, if you've been following us for quite a while, you probably already know who this is. And if you're following his podcast, The Ramblings of a Grappleman, which you should be, we've got the return of the legacy, Mr. Matthew Priest. How you doing, brother, man?
Excellent. Thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to sit down with the gentleman at Knockouts and 3 Counts and talk a little grappleman business.
Well, Corey, throw out your social media, and Mr. Priest, before I get to Corey, if you're so kind, let everybody know where they can find your podcast, social media, all that good shit.
Podcast is available everywhere but YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, Breaker, Anchor, of course, Apple and Google. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find it, called Ramblings of a Grappleman. Instagram, Ramblings of a Grappleman, all one word. And Matthew_Priest, 1 T in Matthew, 1 T in Priest.
Well, Corey, you know the deal. Throw out your social media, let them know where they can find you, all that good shit.
As always, man, only thing I'm using anymore is the Twitter. Get at me, Fight Fan from 313, and let's get to it.
All right. Well, we got a lot to talk about. I sent you guys some notes of some things to talk about. But before we get into that, like I mentioned, Mr. Priest is also the host of a podcast called Ramblings of a Grappleman. So tell us a little bit about what's been going on your show and what they can expect over there from you and all your rambling.
Well, it's been, during football season, we had a gambling show called Gambling with the Grappleman. So now the football season's over and gambling has been legalized in the state of Michigan. We have these beautiful UFC cards coming up, which might have to dip our toes in there with some special guests.
I already won on the Derek Lewis knockout. It's all good.
There you go. It's a beautiful thing. You gotta love the gambling. So we talk some odds there here in a little bit. It's a good platform for it with the gambling, with the folks who know the fighting more than I do. That's why you tune in the Knockouts 3 Counts. But on the pro wrestling end of things, when you get into the Ramblings of a Grappleman, it's a deep dive into the pro wrestling business. Recently, I broke down the art of an entrance. I did an alternate commentary to Hogan, Warrior, and WCW, doing all kinds of things, whatever's on my brain, whatever I feel like rambling about in the world of professional wrestling, I'm going to spew it out. Recently did a dry run episode with a special guest, recapping AEW Dynamite. So we might have some recaps in the future with our thoughts on things there. Like I said, it's an open pro wrestling forum, and we will continue to discuss things there if I have a guest or not. Like I said, whatever's in this brain of mine needs to get out, and that's what my podcast is for.
Well, hey, I'm just saying, if you ever need somebody to come shoot the shit about some wrestling, give your boy a call.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Always welcome on here. So I have to get you back on there. We'll definitely have to get a breakdown there, and I think a perfect platform for that would be a gambling episode on the UFC. Big card coming up.
Hey man, I'm with it. I've just started to kind of dip my toes into that. A guy at work kind of got me using the whole FanDuel thing. And it's crazy because it's like he don't got a damn clue when it comes to the fights. So he wants me to help him pick all the fights. And then so the first week I bet like $30 and I won like I had like 94.50 at the end of the night, so I won my money back plus another 60.
Hey, Dustin Poirier won me big.
Yeah,
I put 100 on him to knock out McGregor, and he sure as shit did. So that was like plus 210 odds. So
what was the odds on that? Do you remember?
Plus 210 for knockout.
Ooh, that was a good turnaround.
And I also had him just winning money line, which was actually like plus 108 or plus 118. So I won big on Poirier because I knew, I mean, he's just a better fighter at the end of the day. And
so
right.
let's talk about that. I had one this past weekend with Canelo's fight. I bet on Canelo to knock him out in rounds 4 through 6. If you watch the fight, he beat the shit out of the guy in 3 rounds and he couldn't get up off the stool. So technically I lost, but I still won because the guy made it through the 3rd round. So it shows up as a loss, but I still got paid. So another week in a row where I didn't do good on any of the other fights, but I still won one of them. So we didn't go as a complete loser. So it was all right. And I got to throw some money in on this fight that's going down this weekend. So since we're starting there, Mr. Priest, what are you thinking about UFC 259?
That's Blachowicz and Adesanya, right?
Yeah, sir.
There's so many cards; it's hard to keep track.
You got Nunez fighting. Who's she fighting, Corey?
Megan Anderson, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yep, there you go. Nunez, Megan Anderson, and there's another title fight on there, isn't it? Or is it a number 1 contender?
Aljamain Sterling.
Aljamain. There you go. See, he's got you.
See, look at you're ahead of the game.
See, I like it. That's what I like to see, man. People actually pay attention to the notes. Hard damn.
Hard to keep track of UFC these days. There's so many events.
There really
is. It's almost like when Dana launched, or really UFC was in its prime 15, or not in its prime, but when it was launching 15 years ago to the heights that no one thought it would ever even get to, and where it's at now. And he's like, we're not going to be boxing. You're not going to see a UFC card multiple times a week. Well, here we are. We're at the point where we're getting 2-3 cards a week sometimes. And you know what? As long as the money's coming in, that's all that matters. Good for Uncle Dana and good for the fighters, the platform there. As far as UFC 259 goes, Adesanya moving up in weight, if I'm not mistaken, to take on Blachowicz. How do you say that, Corey?
Jan Blachowicz.
It's Polish.
That's right. Why did I say that?
Yeah,
Blachowicz.
exactly.
I know his name. God damn it.
Very.
I'm the one that always pronounces them right, and I done fucked it up.
So Blachowicz and Adesanya. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm going with Adesanya here. I think moving up in weight. He's one of those rare fighters where you see him, and I'm not going to compare him to Anderson Silva because they have a little bit different styles, but he's a guy who hasn't looked better than everybody he's fought to me since Anderson Silva. I mean, you got John Jones as well, but he's just on a different level fighter. I've seen Blachowicz a lot, him and Gustafsson, and I just have never been super impressed by Blachowicz. To the point where I think he's a better fighter than Adesanya. That's my take. I'll turn it over to the guys who know a little bit more about fighting than I do.
See, all right. So I'll follow that point up because I actually have been kind of hearing that same thing from all the podcasts and stuff that I've been watching throughout the week. But there's a couple people, and I wish I could point them out exactly which shows, but they kind of weigh their opinions almost the same way I do. And it's, if you look back at that last fight where Jan actually did win the title over Dominic Reyes, it was not necessarily anything drastically had changed in his game, but for him to be able to pour it on somebody like Dominic Reyes, who did look as impressive as he did in the fight previous to that against John Jones, he did a really, really excellent job of implementing his skills and when he landed, it was extremely hard and it wasn't second guessed. It wasn't questioned. It was immediate and thrown with intention. There was no hesitation behind it. And you're talking about his first world title fight. So for him to be able to do that in a performance like that. And one thing that weighs really heavy on me, and I feel like I still lean, let me preference all of this with, I feel like I still lean towards Adesanya. In all of that being said, Jan Blachowicz, he landed that body kick on Dominic Reyes, and it took, I believe, 2 solid body kicks, and his whole side of his ribs were about as purple and blue as you could imagine. if that happens to Izzy's that much smaller. I mean, he's going to be a lot more elusive, but it doesn't take much, man. When somebody that with that type of size and speed and commitment to his strikes, I could definitely see Jan, and especially you guys were talking about the gambling aspect of it with him coming in as an underdog. It's somebody that's seriously worth putting a couple bucks on, honestly, even if it's not a lot.
That's exactly what I wanted to talk about. I'm telling you right now, even though if I had to guess who I really think is going to win, I think everybody's trying to say, well, Izzy doesn't have the power to knock out Blachowicz. Bullshit, he don't. Because Costa's a big boy, first of all. Number two, and before I get off of Costa, I got to ask some opinions on Costa. But that's number one. Number two, like you said, with those odds for Blachowicz, because the thing is, we were talking about this when we were watching the fights on Saturday. Okay, here's the thing. If Blachowicz hits Izzy, he can say whatever he wants. It is going to take Jan one shot, and Izzy's night's over with. I'm saying it right now. I'm not saying he don't have a chin. I'm just saying he's naturally bigger and is already known for knocking people the fuck out.
For anyone who's not entirely familiar with Jan's, I guess, history and his run up to the belt, just go watch that fight. UFC actually released it as their free anticipation building for this pay-per-view fight. It was his win over Dominic Reyes in his title performance. He absolutely dominated in that fight. And
that was very surprising to me.
Go look at the very end of the fight and go look at Dominic Reyes' nose. His nose was about as crooked as it was, about like one of those. It was
looking like the Undertaker's finger, people.
It was just rough, man.
You ever seen Undertaker's hands? Undertaker's hands are rough. Fucking mangled.
And yet again, like I said, I feel like Adesanya's got the quickness and he's dealt with bigger guys, but if Jan lands one of those, man, it's not a good time. It's not going to be a good time.
I agree. And so
with other guys coming up in weight, because Rockhold came up in weight when he fought him, and so did Jacare, right?
Yep. Both.
So this is another case of a guy coming up in weight, and Blachowicz knocked both those guys out too. So that's an excellent point. That knockout on Rockhold was.
That pretty much dirty, bro.
It changed Rockhold's career.
I'm glad you actually brought that up because I didn't weigh that into my kind of anticipation, I guess you could say, for the fight. But that is a very good point. And the way that I was actually watching a interview Rockhold did earlier this week, and he was talking about the fight with him, and he was actually saying that he was surprised that he didn't have more of a speed advantage that he thought he would have. I mean, granted, Rockhold did put on a little bit of size coming into that fight, so maybe he just wasn't used to his size. But from his words, essentially, Blachowicz is fast, man. Mm-hmm. So that's something to for real watch out. And that's a great point that he had already welcomed 285ers unsuccessfully to his division. You know what I mean?
I may be wrong. I don't think he knocked out Jacare. Wasn't that a decision? He knocked out Anderson. Is that who he fought after Jacare?
He did. Let me look it up just to confirm. But yeah, he definitely did knock out. Why am I blanking his name? You literally just can't remember.
You bringing up the body kicks though, took me back to like when I first was introduced to Blachowicz, and I cannot remember the card, but it was one of those Sweden cards, it's probably longer than 5 years ago. It's probably like 2014, 15 era. He fought a Swedish fighter in Sweden, dropped him with the body kicks. And the guy still had a career in the UFC. I cannot think of his name right now, but it had to be about, like I said, around that time. And I remember when you started talking about him hitting the body kicks on Reyes, that's something that I believe he defeated Alir Latifi, maybe. I believe he defeated Latifi with body kicks as well. So that name just popped in my head out of nowhere. I don't think I've ever thought of that guy. And since that fight,
Mr. Priest, see, there's a reason I like bringing you on this damn show other than the fact for your good looks, brother. But that's not the only big fight that we've got going on. Okay. You've got Amanda Nunes is coming back. This is her first fight since becoming a mother. You know, her and her wife adopted a child and all that stuff. And so she's stepping into the cage with Megan Anderson, who, for all intents and purposes, man, is going to be arguably the most close to Amanda Nunes size fight that we've really seen. Because in most of her fights, to me, she's always much bigger, kind of like Cyborg used to be back in the day too. So that's the thing that makes this fight kind of interesting to me, is that now we're going to see what Amanda Nunes really can do with somebody who, now, not to be fair, she's fought Cyborg, so it's not like she hasn't done it before, but to be fighting a young up-and-comer that's got a little bit of size and usually knows how to use her length pretty well, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. That being said, I think Amanda Nunes is still walking out of the cage with the damn belt, but
hammering down on Amanda Nunes. Look, Megan Anderson, I saw a few of her fights back in the Invicta days. I'm not even sure if Invicta's still running shows.
It is.
They are.
But I mean, she was an up-and-comer in Invicta. She looked dominant in Invicta. Then I believe her first fight in the UFC was against Holly Holm or Kat Zingano. Don't know. She did not look good in those first two fights with Holly Holm or Zingano. She won against Zingano, I think, by like due to an injury.
Yeah, it was a toe to the eye essentially during a kick. It was a kick. Yes. It was a kick landed, but it was a inverting toe in the eye while the kick was landed. So it
was early. It was like right at the beginning of the fight too.
Yeah,
because I remember watching that in it was a Garage Days fight when I would watch all the cards in a garage, and we'd be betting on them by throwing money on the floor. However, and I remember there being some very angry people that had gone Zingano's way. But even her last couple fights, she's just never been like that impressive. I think she did get a knockout in her last fight. I did not see it. I think I just read about that when I was reading about the build up to this fight. But I've not been impressed since I've seen Megan Anderson. And I've been on the Amanda Nunes train since the Strikeforce days. They kept her away from Ronda Rousey for years because they knew she was the one who was going to dominate her. And the UFC kept her away for years. She was the number one contender for years. And they were smart to keep her away, build her to the American audience, let her dominate. And then when the division's right for her to take over and be the force that she is, they booked her very smart.
I can't argue that at all, man. I mean, this fight I think is going to be a good fight for Amanda to come back on. I think it'll be a good fight just on the test with the size, but I think at the end of the day, I think this is going to be a fight that by and large, Amanda Nunes is going to do what Amanda Nunes does.
I agree with you. I agree with you guys essentially that, there's definitely there's something to be said though in the improvement in skills in some of these younger fighters. And I believe Megan Anderson, even though she might not be quite as young on the scale of young, she's young in her career. So she has time to advance skill wise still, even though her age isn't quite in the same category.
Right.
She looked, like you said, she's turning a real corner. I feel like there's a reason beyond just the fact that they needed to give Amanda Nunes a fight at 145 for her to rightfully still own that belt. I do believe that there's a reason why they gave her that title fight. That being said, there's a reason why this betting line is also the way it is. Amanda Nunes is a huge favorite for a reason, but the one thing she did struggle with in her last couple fights, granted it was against an incredible striker, somebody I probably think at a higher tier, honestly, than Megan Anderson. God, these names are killing me tonight. God,
get it out, guy.
I'm just struggling. Struggle City tonight with words. Why can I not think of her name? The girl that she fought in the title fight, the last 145 title fight. Why can I not think of it at the moment? I had it on the tip of my tongue.
Holly Holm?
Lost it. Nope. It was Durandamine. Thank you very much.
Reese is coming in hot tonight. I like it.
You're taking them off my tongue for me. But that fight, you could see her actually slightly struggle with the striking abilities. And one thing, she was able to absolutely implement the wrestling and control the fight throughout that and get the win handily with the wrestling. Now, if Megan Anderson with a long extended training camp because Amanda Nunes just had her first baby, congratulations, yada, yada. if she could really work on her wrestling game, she might stand a potential chance, but I honestly don't see her being able to pull it off. I really don't.
I'm kind of in the same boat, dude. I think Amanda Nunes is keeping the belt, but I mean, I wouldn't mind throwing a little bit of money on Megan just on the off chance that she wins. All right, we're going to go on a deeper dive of the whole card on this Thursday when we bring on Mega Ran before we head down to Jacksonville. You might want to stay tuned if you're watching AEW Revolution, because I'm going to just say here and now, there might be a surprise for Mr. Mega Ran, but I'll leave that to him to talk about. Yeah, like I said, we'll talk more about the whole card. But before we get out of here, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the last title fight on this card. Aljamain Sterling versus Peter Eon. I am a big fan of this fight. I've always been a big fan of Aljamain's work. Jan is definitely no slouch, and I think this is going to be a scrap of a fight. But I'm not going to lie. If we're talking about who I think is going to win right here and now, on the spot, putting my feet to the coals, I think we're going to see a new champion in Aljamain Sterling.
I agree with you. And that's partially my fanboy side coming out about my boy Aljo. But honestly, I think the wrestling is going to be a little bit much. And I also think as skilled and as great as Peter Eon has looked in a lot of his fights, I don't think he's necessarily went through the hardest road to get to the title. I really don't. And I feel like Aljamain Sterling, somebody who is truly battle tested at the division's elite at this point. And the way when you've seen him in his last fight, the way he ran through Corey Sandhagen, who's just looked impressive as hell.
Killer against Frankie Edgar?
Yeah, well, not even against just Frankie Edgar. There's a reason why he worked his way into that number one contender fight with Aljamain.
I'm just saying that's what's hot on everybody's mind right now is he put Frankie Edgar in a coma.
And don't forget too, he also beat Marlon Moraes after that with the spinning heel kick. So
before that, you mean?
It's just he's in my eyes, he is the division's elite. And I don't think Peter Eon has fought.
No arguing it.
And I just don't think Peter Eon's fought those guys yet. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. He's an absolutely skilled contender. And I feel like he did earn that belt for a reason. But I feel like giving Aldo the fight at 135, coming off of a loss that was a close decision, yada, yada, and him winning the belt that way, I don't think that's the proper way to win the title in the 130-5 division, especially with how active that division was and still is.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I only have limited. I've seen Sterling fight more than I've seen Jan fight. I think I've only seen Jan fight when he fought Aldo and Faber, pretty much taking out legends. And then, I think he fought John Dodson. Yeah. And I think that's my only experience of seeing him fight. He looks like a stud, though. He looks like a guy that has a really, really bright future. Is Aljamain Sterling the guy that he knocks off to become the standard bearer of the division? Mm-hmm. Everything points to no. It's Sterling's time and Sterling's the dude. But just the history of UFC always has these weird guys that feel like underdogs, and then like even when you think of like Conor McGregor, I've never been a big McGregor, but he kind of came up and kind of out of nowhere, and then he was on top, and he just seemed unbeatable. And not comparing Jan to McGregor in that way, but even before McGregor, there's always a guy, even like Anderson Silva to a degree, like kind of came up out of nowhere. Yeah, he'd fought in Pride and everywhere else, but he wasn't the household name in that division. And when he won the belt, people were like, why is Anderson Silva champ? And then 8 fights later, they're like, is anyone going to beat this guy for the belt? And I could see Jan being that guy. In Saturday when I put my bet in, I'm leaning toward Jan just because of that. It's a hunch. Sterling's the better fighter, but there's just a hunch of the way the UFC's history is. It seems like a fight where Jan could really put on a show and become a name.
And see, all right, part of me does agree with you, because even though it is against legends are there for a reason. They've shown their skill and their worth. Maybe they are a little bit long in the tooth or whatever euphemism you want to use in explaining that they're too damn old still to be fighting.
But he finished Faber, didn't he? I know he finished.
Yeah,
I know he
finished Faber and Aldo. So.
I know he destroyed Aldo, but I couldn't remember.
Well, both of those fights, honestly, and I feel like a good fight to look back on his was actually when he fought Jimmy Rivera, somebody who put on an excellent performance in the last week's card.
Yeah, Jimmy Rivera's a good fighter. I didn't see that fight with Jan.
If you have Fight Pass or just the ability to find it, go do yourself a favor, go back and look at that fight, because what happened was Jimmy Rivera Jimmy Rivera won 2 minutes and 45 seconds, or not 2 minutes and 4 minutes and 45 seconds of all those rounds. But the 15 seconds that he lost in each round was one solid power punch or a couple solid combos, and it was enough to sway the judges in his favor. I don't know if Aljamain's going to be a little more elusive or if the takedowns are going to make enough of a difference, but that was, in my eyes, his real more of a test than him fighting these legends, him fighting somebody who's kind of more in his age and skill level bracket, I feel like.
Who does Jan train with? Is it Habib's team?
So he used to train out in Tiger Muay Thai out in Thailand. Yeah. And then he actually just switched training camps because of all the COVID and restrictions and everything. He's now at American Top Team. Oh. So this is going to be his first fight at a new training camp as well.
It's an interesting take.
I mean, and they got a lot of guys there. I mean, they got arguably the 155 champ there. Well, yeah. I don't know about you guys, man. I'm looking forward to UFC 259, but there's a lot of things that we got to talk on the wrestling end of things as well. So before I get to that, I read a message that said that Clash Wrestling is going to be making their return in 2021. So would you care to elaborate, Mr. Priest?
Yeah, 2021. I mean, it's been almost a year to the date since the last Clash Wrestling show. I believe it was March 6th of 2020, a Friday night event. And we looked at running a few times, but Clash Wrestling we've always been a promotion where we're gonna have fans. Fans are gonna come out. We're gonna get a big audience to every show we have. And with the pandemic, we don't want to have to limit tickets or limit seating or put any kind of restriction. So we're waiting till things open up more. And we're going to give the fans the show that they've been waiting for and make the wait worth it. And that's the plan with Clash. And that's the same plan with BCWA. And yeah, we're laying low, we're laying in the weeds, but when the time's right, we'll strike, and we'll strike loud, and we'll strike vengeful and forceful. And we'll give the fans a show on both ends, one that they can remember, and not something that is just feeling forced for the sake of running a show. And I'm happy there's a lot of people out there running shows because it's giving the talent a chance to stay fresh. But BCWA and Clash Wrestling are two promotions where we're going to put a show on for the fans, and we're going to make it memorable, and we're going to hammer that home when the time comes and the time is right, looking like summer, maybe fall 2021.
Hey man, I'm looking forward to it. As I've mentioned on this show before, I mean, Corey, I've been going and seeing Clash Wrestling shows since we were freshmen in high school, bro. So I mean, they've been around for a hot minute, dude. Like I said, I can't wait to see Clash come back. And any of you guys that have been following us, you already know that we mess heavy with BCWA. So we'll be back in the building. I'm going to drag Corey's ass out to these shows because they're in Wyandotte. You have no excuse. Right. So we're going to be live and in living color at BCWA. But
as I like to say, LIVE live and kicking.
Hey, we're going to be live and kicking, but I'm going to be live and kicking. Ring the motherfucking bell. I'm going to be live and kicking in Jacksonville, Florida this Sunday at AEW Revolution. And before that, she already liked our tweet out there on Twitter, which if you haven't already done so, make sure you're following us at KO3C Pod. The beautiful Miss Lindsay Snow will be linking up with your boy, and I'm going to be coming home with some more ink on this fucking carcass of mine. So stay tuned to our YouTube channel. We're going to be doing a little bit of footage for that. We'll get a little bit of an injury update on Miss Lindsay Snow. And we're going to talk about how she told Soulja Boy that she'd break his neck even with having a fucked up knee. So there's plenty to talk about. plenty to talk about with the American Kaiju, Miss Lindsay Snow. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be down there with past guests of the show, Mega Ran, and our buddy Derek from Arizona Sports. Smitty, what up, man? I see you in the comments. Perfect timing. We're getting ready to talk about AEW Revolution. So please let me know in the comments who and what you got for this weekend at AEW Revolution. So, Mr. Priest, I will shut up for a minute and leave the floor to you. What are your thoughts on this pay-per-view, and what are you most looking forward to for AEW Revolution?
Well, I think it's hard to jump right into Revolution without talking about Crossroads tomorrow night. This is a good opportunity for AEW to draw as many eyes to their product as possible on Wednesday night. You have the biggest star that they could possibly get on TNT, promoting it on their biggest show that is watched on TNT, with it being basketball, with Shaq coming to AEW Pro Wrestling. AEW is now going to be put to the highest mainstream level that they've been to date. Take that in with the biggest signing that they've made in the Big Show, who's their biggest
Paul White, sir. Paul White, sir. Ah, damn it.
Whatever. Big Show Paul White. He's the biggest star that they now have as well. He's a bigger household name than Chris Jericho, a bigger household name than Sting. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
As somebody who hasn't stayed current with wrestling up to this point for the most part, yeah, I would definitely say the Big Show carries more weight in this household.
Yeah, Big Show is.
Sting, though?
Yeah, because you have to think Sting appeals. Only people who know Sting are wrestling fans. The people who know who Chris Jericho are diehard wrestling fans. Yes, there's people who've seen him on Outside Adventures. Yes, he did Dance with the Stars. Yes, Fozzy tours the country as a heavy metal band. But they're not I mean, I've seen Fozzy at the Machine Shop in Flint. You know, there's 400 or 500 people there. Big Show has got a show on Netflix that has been watched by millions and millions and millions and millions of people. The guy was Captain Insano in the freaking Waterboy. The guy's been in numerous other movies. He's had his own movie in Knucklehead. Big Show has been on tons of talk shows, late night talk shows. People know who Big Show is. My cousin, who hasn't watched wrestling in 20 years, is like, hey, Shaq is going to be on this AEW, and so is the Giant or the Big Show. What is AEW? He's asking me about AEW because of Big Show and because of Shaq. So
okay,
very
I can
smart.
Completely respect that. I can respect it. But my question is this here. So you got Big Show coming over here. Has it dawned on you yet that, hypothetically speaking, the Big Show could be the first person to have won the AEW title, the WWE title, the WCW title, and the ECW title? He could be the first and only person to have ever done that. I don't think he's getting the belt.
I don't care about that. But
I mean, I'm just saying that's a pretty cool thought. But with this,
that doesn't matter to me.
Well,
what does matter?
Oh man,
what does matter is that if AEW doesn't get a 7-figure number, if they don't get if they don't get over 1 million people watching the show on Wednesday, I don't know if it's their fault, because they're doing the right thing to promote it with a pay-per-view coming up right behind it. I'm talking about the business side of pro wrestling here. I am concerned that the main event of Revolution is an exploding barbed wire death match, because you're drawing millions of people to your product on Wednesday. That's not necessarily a match that a casual viewer, an outside viewer, a non-wrestling fan is going to want to say, oh, I got to see this, because it doesn't sound like something in pro wrestling. Where if they were going to see the sports-based product that AEW claims to be to deliver, they could have done a better job, in my opinion, of hyping up Moxley and Omega in a very competitive match to draw to those audience. The booking to me is inconsistent there. However, I am excited for both shows. I'm really intrigued to see what the hell they do with Moxley and Omega in that match. I feel like they totally have wasted Dr. Luther in this angle. Dr. Luther has a long history with Don Callis. Why the hell is Don Callis not using Luther to give Kenny advice in these type of death matches, where a vignette where Kenny just beats the shit out of Luther to establish himself with the audience, hype Luther up?
That's what I'm talking about. Bringing the outside looks, man. I didn't even think about that, but I mean, for those who don't know, I mean, Luther's most of his experience is all Japan.
in FMW. He's been on shows with the Exploding Deathmatch, and he's broken the business with Jericho and Don Callis. So the fact that they haven't used him here, I think, is a big dropping of the ball, because the build-up was so random with Omega calling him out on it. They did a good job with the video package last Wednesday of trying to like establish why it has to come to this match. But then they go to the Kenny Omega building the thing, and it's just the inconsistency of Omega's character loses me. However, Moxley does a perfect match out last Wednesday over Nemeth, cuts a money promo. Moxley's promo has me more intrigued in the match than anything on the Omega side. Omega challenging the match, the vignettes with Omega, they're losing me. Moxley's picking it up there, so hopefully this Wednesday with a big audience, they can hammer a point home to draw the fans in. But outside of that, I mean, Revolution looks like a pretty interesting card, to say the least. A lot of tag team matches.
So here's my thought with the whole deathmatch thing. Okay, so I totally can see where you're coming from, in that, at least as far as a casual fan goes, I could see where there's some that may not want to see that. But to play devil's advocate, there's so many people that are watching, you know, I've heard so many people saying, oh, AEW's got me back. That's what's got me back watching wrestling. So
Sure.
A lot of people are tuning into AEW. So they're watching Kenny Omega. I would almost argue, on a devil's advocate kind of thing, that the fact that Kenny Omega is the one that called for this match, when, like you said, he's known for, you know, his regular wrestling matches, like against Okada and all that stuff, for him to be the one to call Moxley out. And I think this is the perfect thing to keep Moxley relevant, because we've been seeing him doing his thing in Japan against Kenta and all that stuff there too. I think that's going to be great. But the crazy thing about this card is the fact that that ain't even all of it. You know, you've got Sting is going to wrestle for the first time since he got hurt in WWE, which anyone who wants to talk shit about it, fuck you. He deserves to go out on his own terms. So I'm glad that he's getting another chance. Hopefully, you know, it's done right and it doesn't like bastardize it or anything. But I, for one, think it's great. And like you mentioned earlier, I think that this gives Sting a great opportunity to put over a young guy that they're clearly trying to build, and their TNT champion in Darby Allin, which, hey, you can check out that link in the top right-hand corner where Darby Allin told us to go tell Evolve to go fuck themselves, and we ended up in Bleacher Report. But yeah, you can check that out over there. But what are your thoughts on Sting returning to the ring?
I'm looking forward to it. That's the number 2 match. That's actually the match I might be wanting to see the most on this card. I'm cycling through what it's in my head there, because big Ricky Starks fan over here. Ricky Starks is gold.
He is money.
I love me some Ricky Starks. And he's a perfect compliment to Cage, because Cage can do a lot of shit in the ring. He's Mr. Get His Shit In, but he really doesn't have any personality or charisma at any level. I've seen a lot of Brian Cage in my life, and putting him with Taz, I thought was good.
Check out the link in the top right-hand corner.
Putting him with Taz was good. But with Ricky Starks, now he brings that it factor, that charisma level, and him and Cage, hell of a team. I loved the promo last Wednesday, how they did it with Darby and Sting. They finally got me interested in this, because this match was just spinning. It was going nowhere. It was very repetitive week after week after week. Team Taz is running away from a 6-year-old guy with a baseball bat. And I'm like, okay, this is getting old, guys. Now they've kicked it into full gear. I love where the angle went. I thought the video package was cool, with Darby getting drug in the body bag in the desert. You see Sting's gloves open in the bag. You got Darby, then Sting's pulling the bag out on the stage. You assume Darby's in it. He unleashed it. No, it's Hook, Taz's kid. They got me with that angle. I'm in.
That
Darby out of the rafters like Sting old, kicking wholesale ass all over the place. It was a really good angle, really well done. And that's one of those things where AEW, yeah, there's 1,500 people in that amphitheater. It would have been great if it was in an arena, 10,000 people. That place would have went fucking banana.
Oh, dude, go ahead.
I was going to ask both of you guys, what do you guys want to actually see in the match itself? Like, you guys both talked about the excitement building into the match, but the match itself, because you alluded to it yourself, Sting's no young man. And you also alluded to it, Kyle, in saying you don't want to see him ruin his career or look bad or give himself in a bad light. So what's your expectations for the actual match itself, guys?
I'll let you go first, Priest.
My expectation for the match is that they don't overstay their welcome. What I should look at this in two ways. What I hope they do is 8 to 10 minutes.
I was just about to say that
of action. Just give it to them, a good brawl, a good fight, 1 or 2 big high spots. Let Cage kill Darby Allin. Let him do some crazy stunt with Darby Allin. Protect Sting. Let Sting, right when you got the baby faces down, let them make their big comeback, work together and overcome the adversity. That's what I hope happens. I would actually really hope if they turn this into a little bit more of a cinematic style match.
I was going to ask you about that because I
gave it a little bit of that flavor to protect it and allow the story to sink in, telling a good story. What I expect them to do is to have what you see on every AEW show when it's a street fight or no DQ and they just brawl around Daly's place and hit each other with shit, and it goes probably 15 to 20 minutes. It's way too long, and it's just guys.
You think it goes that long?
Hitting each other with shit, brawling around the thing. With those guys, I can see it definitely going that long. AEW does not like to have short matches. That's what I expect, and I'm not going to be happy if that's what they do. What I think they're going to do is what I hope they don't do, but that's what I think is going to happen. It's just going to fight all over because that's the only match on the show that's I think a street fight. In every pay-per-view, they have guys fighting all over. They want to show off that football stadium.
See, I don't think it's going to go that long, and here's why. Because you also got to remember, they got the Casino Battle Royal matches in that shit. You got the Face of the Revolution ladder match. The exploding barbed wire death match is going to have at least 25 minutes for it because it's supposed to be 15 minutes for the match, and they're going to have a crazy entrance for it. So for me, I think, like you mentioned, I literally was thinking as you said that, I think the perfect time limit for this would be about 8 to 10 minutes. I'm still on the fence on whether I think that this is going to be completely cinematic, because when they first announced it, that's kind of what I heard the rumbling was going to be, that it was going to be a cinematic match. But now at this point, I'm not really sure what's going on. Okay, so I want to give a shout out to Smitty from Breaking Down the Ring. If you guys haven't been following them, make sure you check them out at BDRcast. He's been commenting right along with us. He said he thinks it's going to be the shortest match on the card, and he feels like what Sting is doing is kind of similar to what Edge did, because he got taken out in his match with Rollins and never really got to finish, and now he's coming back. Now, I don't think that Sting is going to get the AEW title, but I can see the comparison. Yeah. The other thing that we got to talk about on this card, Sting is not the only person that is making his return at Revolution. We've got the return of Tully fucking Blanchard.
That's this week on Crossroads.
Yeah, but he's right. That's leading into it, I'm saying I'm not shocked if he gets in. I was going to say, I don't think that he's not going to get involved in the match at Revolution as well. So
at Revolution, the FTR will be in the Battle Royal.
Right. But I'm saying with Tully and all this, man, I feel like that however this plays out on Wednesday,
that's what I'm looking forward to the most on Wednesday.
I agree completely. And what I was going to say is, I don't think, however this match goes, I think it's going to be dragged. At least I hope it's going to be drug out a little bit longer, because I'm a big fan of the team of Jurassic Express. Corey, if you don't know Jungle Boy Jack Perry, which we've got an interview with him from AEW's Full Gear before everything went into Corona. You can check that out in the archives. But Jungle Boy Jack Perry is the son of Luke Perry, the actor from Riverside and all kinds of other different stuff, man. So he already, people were already looking at him before he got in there. You got Luchasaurus, which I would argue is one of the most athletic big men in wrestling. As far as the shit he can do with some of those kicks and shit, dude. You do not see a big guy that's throwing his shit like that. And if anyone says Damian Priest, yes, there's a comparison, but I'm just a big fan of the big guy. But
hey, Priest is 7 times better than Luchasaurus. Yeah, he's athletic. Yeah, he can throw some kicks and shit, but the guy doesn't know how to work. Damian Priest is 7 times the worker Luchasaurus is.
Not even arguing that, because he's doing his thing with Bad Bunny. But like I said, I'm a fan of the guy as well. Okay. Smitty says Dominic Dijakovic. I don't know who the hell you're talking about. I only know a guy named T-Bar, sir. So
also 17 times the worker of Luchasaurus.
I agree with you, but I don't know who Donovan Dijakovic is anymore. I only know a guy named T-Bar since they put him in fucking Retribution. But that being said, damn, did he roast Soulja Boy's life on Twitter. Dude, these rappers, dude, are getting like tore up over here. Like between the words that Bow Wow's coming in and Soulja Boy's taking his shots. And what?
Did you guys see the Batista reply to Soulja Boy?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
So yeah, there was a thing all over Twitter. So Bow Wow said he wants to come out and do WWE.
That's not Bow Wow, but right. Soulja Boy is still Superman hose or what? I don't know anything.
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to
I don't understand what. I honestly don't understand what keeps him current myself, but for some reason he seems to always pop up in like some type of random podcast or whatever the case. It ends up across my feed somehow. So whatever him or his PR guys is doing, it's not releasing music, but yeah, he's saying current somehow or another.
Well, talking shit about wrestling, good for Soulja Boy. So a bunch of guys have just come back at him, I'm assuming.
Oh, dude,
yeah,
like they're eating him alive. Guys, girls, and the like are just.
Well, dude, he came out in a post and said that the rap game's faker than WWE, and everybody's going ham on him, talking about, oh, wrestling's fake. All my injuries, all my family's life stake, all this, that, like they're all defending it like tooth and nail when he wasn't even necessarily talking about wrestling. He was just talking about
taking a shot at rap.
Yeah. So I think a lot of it's kind of mistaken, and it's like almost people trying to get PR off somebody who's a PR guy. So I don't know.
I just
find it funny how the exact people who are talking shit about wrestling, right, are trying to use wrestling essentially to get themselves a little bit of rub. Say what you want, but Bow Wow wasn't doing shit. And now I've seen him come at a couple guys on Twitter. Oh, I got more followers than this, that, and the other. And I forgot who it was that said something. They were like, you're talking. It was Chris Bay. Chris Bay said something. He was like, you're trying to talk shit, but how is it that I've got more views in 20 minutes than you've got in a month? What up, Justin? Justin Del Rio from Nerds of Wrestling is in here checking us out. If you haven't done so, make sure you check out his group and our group, Reality Era News. Like I said, man, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world of wrestling. And before I get out of here, I got to know your thoughts. What are your thoughts on our new WWE champion, the Destroyer, Mr. Bobby Lashley?
Bobby Lashley is long overdue.
Damn straight.
Overdue. When he was in Impact, this was probably 4 or 5 years ago, when he finally had come into his own, and I'm like, this guy's money. Impact was an entertaining show. He was leading that company, and he was turning that product around. And then he comes to WWE, comes back there.
I was there the night he returned.
Real yo-yo effect with Bobby Lashley. And then finally, MVP comes in, they put him with the Hurt Business, and they turn him heel, and they let him be the Bobby Lashley that we saw on TNA 4 or 5 years ago, where this guy's money, this guy's a champion, looks like $1 million. He's legit, as legit as you can get. He's everything that you want in a world champion. He has charisma. He can cut a promo, even though they don't let him cut.
Yes, he can, dude. And that's the thing. Like, people are like, because Impact was on Pop TV and the crappier, networks for a little while, people do not realize, dude, when Bobby Lashley went to Impact, the stuff he was doing when he was cutting promos, especially when they were bringing in the guys from AT&T. Like, I was letting Corey know, I was like, bro, when Bobby Lashley was in Impact, bro, he had Colby Covington in the cage with him. He had Thiago Alves came out at one point. Like, a lot of big name guys in MMA, were out there during that, that storyline. So I'm glad to finally see it. But here's my question for you. Who do you want to see Bobby Lashley face at WrestleMania? Do you want to see some kind of triple threat or a fatal four? Or do you want to see, there's only 2 matchups that really make sense to me, right? 3 actually. And one of these was kind of put in my head this morning on Busted Open Radio. One being a fatal 4-way between Sheamus, Drew McIntyre, The Miz, and Bobby Lashley, which I could see that in a way, but more likely, and what I would rather see would be either the match that I know I've been saying I want to see for like fucking ever, but Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley, or the one that writes itself, Bobby Lashley's probably, obviously, Bobby Lashley's got the belt right now, but I don't know. I want to see him and Brock Lesnar, dude.
Yeah, I think WrestleMania we're getting Lashley McIntyre 1-on-1. I think that's what we're getting. I would love it.
He agrees.
I would love it if Brock came in. It'd be gold. I mean, it'd be a dream match. Those guys never cross paths. They've rarely been in the same place at the same time. I don't know if the match would be any good though, because both guys would just alpha male each other, and I just would fear that it would not be as good of a match as it might have been a few years ago. But I would love to see it. That doesn't mean take anything away that I wouldn't want to see it. Hopefully they can get Brock in there. I doubt it. I feel like it's going to be McIntyre and Lashley 1-on-1.
Yeah, and plus you only got 5 weeks till Mania. I mean, that's a real short time to insert him.
Aren't they hot shot another pay-per-view in here?
Yeah, they got Fastlane coming up too, and that's the other thing I wanted to ask your opinion on. So on Raw last night, obviously the news has come out that Lacey Evans is pregnant, hence why the stuff with Charlotte Flair and Ric Flair and Lacey Evans came to a screeching halt. Here's the thing. So Charlotte comes out and now says, well, Asuka needs an opponent for WrestleMania. I want the shot. Now, here's the thing. Because of the way the Raw women's division has looked, I mean, I don't really think there's too many other ways you could really go with that one. Who else can you realistically plug right in there, number one? And number two, if you're going to put Charlotte in there, again, there's no bell for me to ring right now, but I was there when they faced each other at WrestleMania 34 in New Orleans, and that was a badass match. So if we're going to do that at WrestleMania, and you're going to do that where there's fans, I'm all for seeing that match again. So what are your thoughts on Charlotte calling out Asuka? Do you think that it's bullshit that they're putting her right back in the title picture?
Well, they have to. She's their biggest star in their women's division. She's arguably the best one they have. She can go, and she's delivered at 3 or 4 straight WrestleManias. Her and Rhea Ripley tore it the hell down last year. Her and Asuka tore it down. The triple threat with Rousey and Becky was, it was all right. They main evented WrestleMania though. So
Charlotte, that crowd was hot again.
Yeah, and Charlotte's legit. She should be there. And her and Asuka, there's a story there. There's a lot of history there. They were just teaming up. Charlotte ended Asuka's streak. There's a lot of story there with Asuka being the champ. Charlotte makes the most sense as a contender. I mean, who else? Who else would you even put in that spot?
I agree completely, and it just highlights the one thing that I'm really hoping that maybe we can see an end put to as far as the way WWE books things. And it's another thing I heard on Busted Open, but it's something I've been saying since we had Tara LaRosa on the show, who has a rivalry with the person I'm about to name. What in the fuck is going on with the way they book Shayna Baszler? Hot damn. Before the match, you show her she kicked Asuka in the mouth and knocked her teeth across the fucking ring. And then you have a match 2 minutes later and she gets her ass whooped. Like, I understand it's Charlotte, but let's face it. Everybody knows that Shayna Baszler could fuck up the majority of that roster. Number two, since you can't have Ronda Rousey in there, you got the next best thing in Shayna Baszler. How damn it? Why is it so hard to not make her look like a chump?
Always been a big Shayna Baszler fan. I mean, her and Josh Barnett, knowing they were wrestling fans decade ago, I immediately became fans of them as fighters. So now that Shayna's in pro wrestling, Shayna, though, as good as she is, as talented as she is missing that it factor. She is missing that.
Because in NXT she had it plenty.
She never headlined a show. She lost the crowd.
She did. It was her. She headlined when she was champion.
Which one? Which takeover did they headline?
God damn
They
it.
never headlined. Shayna Baszler had some really good matches. She had some really, really good matches, really great matches. However, she also had a few.
Her and Bianca?
She had a few stinkers too. No, they didn't go on last.
Damn it. I can't remember, but all I know is I remember her having some badass.
She had some badass matches. Good matches, but good matches don't draw money.
The stories were good too, though. I just feel like
I'm with you on that. But Shayna Baszler is not as marketable of a name as Ronda Rousey. She's not as attractive as Ronda Rousey.
No shit.
And that's a big factor of it too, especially when you're looking through the eyes of Kevin Dunn, who's a television producer, and he doesn't see Shayna Baszler as a star. He's going to look at Charlotte as a star. He's going to look at Becky. He's going to look at Bayley, Sasha, Naomi.
No, I agree. I see your point.
You know, and Shayna Baszler, talented as hell, can go out there and have a good match. But her and Becky didn't exactly light the world on fire a year ago either. I think that lost a lot of faith in Vince and Kevin Dunn. You only have one chance to make a first impression, and she didn't make that great of a first impression to them.
I think that's because, I mean, like I said, to guys like you and I who knows what's up, I enjoyed the shit out of Shayna Baszler. And I think one of the biggest problems with what they've done with Shayna Baszler is, look, I get it. You got to have her talk. But she is the carbon copy of the one who is supposed to be booked like a badass. You don't need her to say a whole lot. You need her to go in and run roughshod and fuck people up. They've had her take too many situations that you watch and you're just like, dude, this doesn't make any fucking sense.
They had a perfect opportunity 9 months ago 11 months ago to align Heyman with Baszler. And
that would have been fucking money, dude.
Have her be the killer with Rousey gone, with Lesnar gone. Now you've got a new killer for Heyman, but you can't take anything away from Reigns and Heyman's memo there. I'm sure you're probably getting your countdown from your producer here any minute.
Yep. It's fire for sure, dude. But there's plenty more for us to talk about. Mr. Priest, I appreciate you coming on as always, and make sure you're checking us out. This Thursday is, like I said, we will have the return of the homie Mega Ran. We're going to go through the full deal with AEW Revolution, what we know with what's going on with the fights. Did Chimaev really retire? All kinds of shit for us to talk about. We'll have to see what unfolds. Mr. Priest, one more time, let them know where they can find your podcast and all those good things.
Instagram, Twitter, Matthew_Priest, 1T in Matthew, 1T in Priest. Ramblings of a Grappleman, smash it all together on the Instagram. And then separately, if you're searching any podcast that you'd like to listen to on the platform, Ramblings of a Grappleman, MAN, man on the end of grapple.
Well, Corey, I think we dropped this another episode of Podcast Gold, and we still got one more before I take my ass to Jacksonville.
Right. Ready for that flight, Kyle?
Well, shit, I'm hoping I can maybe get out of here Friday, but we'll see how that happens. So until next time and in the in-between time, peace.